Alright guys, I got my coffee ready. I think I'm ready to go. Today we're going to work on the aspect of our web app where we will have users log in. So we first need to write up the form in HTML and then work with the backend. And if you haven't been following along, I've been using Flask and Python to kind of make a little project that is a video game review web application where users can create accounts and review video games and like other people's reviews. And I'm sure we'll add to the functionality as we get going. But yeah, the main focus of this episode is to have users log in and then store that they are logged in via a session, which we learned in the last video. So if you haven't seen the last video where I talked about sessions, go back and do that. I think I gotta close this from the last time. Yeah. It'll help you understand what sessions are and how we're going to use them. But let's go ahead and start with the front end first. So I'm going to go into templates and create a new login.html. This is probably going to be a lot like the index.html, where I'm just going to have a form and it's going to ask for the username and password. It's not going to ask for the name that we did when we created the user. Whoops, I think I was looking at the wrong one. We asked for the name as well, so that's going to be one thing missing. But I'm just going to copy all of that and keep the same kind of style. And I think I ended up copying, yeah, I ended up copying the wrong one. So let's copy the create user one. All right, cool. And then in the future, I'm going to talk about inheriting templates and inheriting like a base HTML and then adding our functionality or our own for each page, our own HTML in each one. So we don't have to rewrite this whole top. And then we'll have probably like a nav bar and all that good stuff. But we'll worry about that in the future. So right now I'm just going to take a look and see what we don't need. So we don't need the name. So I'm going to delete this whole div. Okay. And we ask for the username and the password and the primary button. So the only thing I can think of that we need to do is create probably another route, and it's going to be /login or login, not log on. And I think the rest of this makes sense, right? We have a username, we have a password. The type is password, so it keeps it in dots rather than just plain text. I think that's all good. I'm going to end up deleting this password Python. That isn't needed anymore. And really this index.html, that was for demonstration as well. So I'm going to delete that. Okay. API demo. Let's go ahead and add a route for login. And as you can see, this is kind of getting messy, right? We got a lot of different routes in here. And maybe that's normal. I'm not too sure. I've never actually looked at a full Flask application. In the future, I plan on talking about what are known as blueprints, so we can add these routes into different forms and call them within our main application. It's a script file. Yeah, so let's go ahead and right below the root, just the slash, let's go ahead and create a new at app.route. And this one's path is going to be login, as we made in that form. And its methods are going to be post and get, right? Because not only are we getting the HTML to render, we're also going to be asking for information from the user so they can log in. So let's call this login. Okay, and let's go ahead and get the username from the form. So it's going to be equals request dot form. And I think we named it name or username. No, it's probably username, isn't it? I'm just going to look to verify. That's what it's called. Username. Yep. Okay. So we have the username. We can get the password from the form. Request.form. Password. Okay, and here's where we can use what I referred to when we were encrypting passwords or hashing passwords. There's another function we can use called SHA-256crypt.verify. And verify takes into different values. It takes in the regular unhashed value, and the second one is the hashed value. And it goes ahead and it takes the unhashed, it hashes it, and checks it with the hashed value to see if they are correct. So what we want to do is first grab the hashed value password from our database for that user that they put in the username. Okay, so I'm going to make a connection. I'm just going to copy and paste from down here where we created our cursor. And then we can make a SQL statement, and it's going to be something like select password from users where, let me look at my database again just to make sure I'm using the right, where username is equal to, and then question mark. So we don't fall for any SQL injection. So now we can do cursor dot, execute. First parameter is going to be our SQL, and the second one is a tuple of the values. So we're passing in the username. So we're going to do username and then a comma to make it a tuple. Okay. And now we're just going to fetch whatever that returns. Okay, so I'm going to make another variable called result, and that's going to be equal to cursor.fetch. Instead of all, we're just going to fetch one. And is that, I don't think that is a function. Maybe it is. Let me look. It is. Okay. So it is a function, so we have to put empty parameters. So it's just going to fetch one. It should only return one. If it returns more than one, we have a problem because we have more than one user with the same username, which shouldn't be the case because we made that unique, and should give us some kind of error. All right, so we have cursor.fetch1, and then it is going to take the result. Let's call this resulting password. And let's see if match, not max, if match. So this if match is going to be a Boolean. It's going to say true or false depending on if these two passwords are going to match. So let's get the hashed password. Actually, no, the first parameter is going to be the unhashed password that we got from the user, and the second one is going to be the hash password from the database. Okay. Then we can say if match. So if they are correct, we can now make a session with the user. So the username of the user is just going to be the one that they passed in. And we can do something like session login, or not login, maybe like logged on, and that's going to equal true. So we have two session variables now that they are logged on. We have the username and the session variable logged on, which we're going to set to true. Okay, so let's see if this is going to even work. I'm trying to think of how we can go ahead and verify this, that it works. Oh, maybe. Okay, maybe in the create user. Or wait, no, maybe in the login, we can say if session logged on is not none, we can return you are already logged in 200 status. Okay, so if the session logged on is not none, which means that they have a value. We can say you're already logged in, and then we can also put as to make sure that we have the right username. So we can do session. I can't type today. Wow. Session user. So you are logged in as blank, is what it should say if we're already logged on. And if not, it's going to continue to grab the form data. And now at the end, we need to actually, let's go ahead and put all of this else. Wow, I can't type. Let's put all of this in an else. That makes more sense. And then at the very end, regardless, we are going to render template. It's going to be our login.html. Login.html. And this is actually going to be in the else because we don't want it to. Oh, it doesn't matter. Because if it returns this, it won't get to this anyway. So we need to actually return this. Okay. All right. I think this makes sense. I could have something missing. I probably do. Wow, it's already running. Okay. So let's go ahead and see if it even works. Okay, so index is not found. That's fine. Let's just do login. Error key logged on. So one thing I did forget, and I knew I missed something, and I messed up something. We need to check if this variable even exists in the session. So what I did was if session.getLoggedOn, okay, if that does exist, then we also check if it equals true. If it equals true, it's just going to return what we asked it to. Then instead of else, I'm going to say else if request.method is equal to post, right? Because if it's not, we don't want it to look for this data that the form's supposed to pass in because they didn't submit the form. So we want to make sure that's done first. I think my username, yeah, the username's coding21. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the password that we made was password. I think it was lowercase password. So now we're getting an error. Hash must be Unicode or bytes, not tuple. Interesting. So it's not liking our verify. Okay, I think I know why. Because when we fetch one, it returns a tuple of the values. So let's go ahead and resulting password. Let's make this equal to 0 and cool. So now you can see how it works because it returned you are already logged in as coding21. Awesome. That was actually easier than I expected. Really cool. One thing I also want to do is after they've successfully logged on, I want to add a field to the database table for users. I'm going to modify this table. I'm going to add in last logged in date. They don't hold dates in SQLite, so we're just going to do text. Okay, that's fine. And then every time that user logs on, we're going to add the date as of right now. So let's do new SQL, and it's going to be update users set, and then whatever we named this. Oh man, I can't copy that. Last logged in date. Logged in date equal to where username is equal to. Okay. So let's do cursor dot execute. Okay, so I think in order to get the date, we need to import datetime into our script. And then down here, the first one is going to be datetime dot, is it now? Let's see if that's what we're gonna do. Let's kill this. Let's run Python import datetime dot now. Alright, is it datetime dot now? Yes. Okay, so let's try doing that into our, where were we? Let's try doing that in our script. So it's datetime dot now, and then the second parameter is going to be in our, or no, the second value in our tuple. Sorry, this is a tuple. Is going to be the username, and the first value, or the first parameter, is going to be our SQL statement. Okay, so the theory being, if we log on, it should update that in database with the current time that we now logged on. So lastly, we need to do, what is it, con.commit. So let's see if this now works. Let's exit Python. Let's do Python API demo. Okay, let's bring it over. Get rid of this. Let's go to login. Okay, and let's do coding 21 and password. Ah, it did. Cool. So now, if we go to this again, it should say you already logged on. Cool. Awesome. Everything looks good. All right. So now we have users that can now log in after creating their account. We are making progress, slowly but surely, but we're learning a lot, hopefully, along the way. Hope you guys enjoy these videos. And as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe.